What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of my Raw Thoughts. So, I'll start off by quickly showing you another video and then I'll expand on it. So, it's to do with buffalo and cattle and rainstorms. So, it's a really good metaphor for life and, how humans, how we respond to our challenges. So, I'll just quickly show you that one now and then I'll, suppose, unpack on it a little bit afterwards.
Coming, they both sense it, and cows, they take off running away, like oh shit, like let's go. And then buffalo, they sense the storm and they run right at it. They run right into the storm. And I compare that to trauma, creating a generation of cows where we're making it okay for us. We just let them run away from it and not deal with it. Cool thing is cows, as they're running away from the storm, they get tired. The storm catches up with the cows, and the cows keep running. They don't stop. If they stop, let the storm pass. No, they just run with the storm. So they're in this misery and shame and guilt. They're in this way longer than they have to be. The buffalo, they run into the storm, and it's terrifying. It's much more terrifying than running away from the storm. But once you get past that first initial scare, that fear, and you get in the storm and then the storm passes, then they're happy and they're rested, and then they can enjoy what the storm gave them, the water and the grass and all that stuff. Heard the metaphor of...
So that's Mason Sawyer, Masonsawayer. I'm not sure if he was on Joe Rogan. It looks like he was, but yeah, and like that's something that stuck with me for ever since I watched it, really. And it's like, as humans, so many of us do the cattle thing. We run away from it. We have, a difficult conversation that we have to have with a friend or family member or somebody at work. We have to, face challenges, do difficult things. We have to put ourselves out there. We have to potentially make mistakes and, look like a fool in front of other people, in terms of when we're actually doing something great, when we're putting ourselves out there. Like, you could use another analogy of like, fighters in the ring. Now, I think that like, I have such a great respect for anyone that jumps in the ring because I've had one ring match and I know how, not only how much solitude it is and how difficult it is in terms of training, but just the mindset. It's you and one other person that are locked in a square, and one of you are coming out a loser for the most part. Like, I was actually awarded a, what do they call it? A tie. And there's a bit of a rabbit hole for that because everyone thought that I should add a win, but I was like, at the time, I was like, you know what? They gave me a tie. I'm happy with that. And it's like, we dance with our potential all through our life. And, when I say with our potential is because, when we are willing to run into these storms, there's going to be all sorts of, it's going to be cold, it's going to be wet, it's going to be dark, it's going to be windy, it's going to be it's going to be like disorienting. You're going to be going through it and your senses aren't going to be working very well. It's going to be uncommon and chaotic. And, it's once you get to the other side of that and things clear up, you have this big sense of relief and elation. But then you're also capable to, you're even more capable to have that experience again. And as a result, then you're less affected by it. And that's kind of the more obvious thing with it. But the thing is, and I particularly believe so as a man, like it's kind of necessary for us to be able to go into storms repeatedly and to allow ourselves, and I think for humans overall, to be fair, and to just like allow ourselves to have all of the dead wood burned off. Like, it's like the phoenix rising. It's like a forest fire. If unless there's like a minor forest fire, once every so often, I suppose in areas where they do tend to have them, if there's too much dead wood that's allowed to build up by humans not allowing, by humans stopping fires or something like that, what happens is a forest fire that goes through after there's so much dead wood that builds up, is the fire burns so hot that it burns the topsoil right off. Because the topsoil is this, layer of ecology, all the bacteria and, decomposing matter. And that's what allows plants to have nutrients. Like, plants live on that nutrients. And when a forest fire is, when a topsoil burns off, there's nothing can grow out of it. You know, the soil's depleted, and it's kind of the same thing that happens in our lives. Like growing up and throughout our lives, we're going through trauma, we're, you know, picking up all sorts of beliefs and habits, and a lot of them are sort of like limiting or subpar. And akin to a forest fire, whenever we go through a time of challenge, it can be like some of that burning off. And the thing is like, if we run away from the storm, then that's being burned off regardless, but we're carrying all of that dead wood. We're taking all of that dead wood going, no, this is me, this is my identity, these are my beliefs, this is true. Oh, I'm just, you know, this way because these things happened, and, you know, that person did this thing to me, and we don't take any accountability for anything. And then, you know, we go so far for so long to the point where we hit a wall, and the fire keeps coming, because that's sort of what life is. That's kind of what rebirth is, like, you know, perpetually having shit parts of ourselves burned off. And, you know, the way that I've really experienced this is some big changes that I've made over the past couple months as a result of, you know, going to my mentors and just saying like, hey guys, there's this thing, like, you know, here's some shit, can you help me with it? And they pretty much have gone like, yeah mate, like, you got to stop doing these things and you got to do these things. And, you know, I've basically just committed to that, and it's something that I knew I needed to do and I wanted to do regardless. Because the willingness to let it be burned off has created such a strong shift in me that, like, I'm like almost unrecognizable energetically from the person that I was, because, you know, now I'm so much more lively, sharp, focused, assertive, certain, etc. But I'm also less attached to myself and to my bullshit. Like, if I mess something up, then I'm so much more willing to allow any, you know, you could call it harsh criticism, but I'm more than capable to handle any criticism that comes in, and to just accept the lesson for what it is. I'm able to take lessons on board, you know, because whether it's something as a result of myself or someone else that's affected me, is taking the lesson on board, is taking the accountability in the situation. Because even if it wasn't something that I directly did, even by allowing other people to do things, or to allowing myself to be in a situation around other people, is still, you know, it's being the bystander when there's a crackhead losing their shit. I mean, maybe a crackhead's a bad example, but, you know, it's being a bystander in a terrible situation, like, or even a kind of bad situation, like, even when it's not all of the stakes are on the line and it's life or death, even if it's just something, you know, simple. You know, let's say for the sake of argument, your friend is talking smack about one of your other friends. You know, if you were there and you're allowing them to do so, then goes without saying, right? But then if you were to say to your friend, like, hey mate, like, you know, I don't think that that's right, and I don't think that you should say that, not only are you giving your friend the opportunity to grow, and you're also giving yourself the opportunity to grow, to be somebody that can hold somebody accountable, and you can save both friendships as a result, because you're not only saving your own friendship because you're not allowing your friend to do things that makes you disrespect them, but then you're also saving the other friendship because you're not allowing your friend to disrespect, you know, your mutual friend. And so in the same way is kind of like how we have the opportunity to relate with ourselves. Like, when we're going through these lessons and challenges, we can either allow ourselves to kind of double down on victimhood, or poor me, or life is difficult, or you can kind of be there with yourself and coach yourself, even when it's painful, right? Like, you know, as a reflection on the storm, like, so often when pain comes up in life, so many of us are so eager to cut and run the other way. And I say so many of us, like, because I have many times in the past, and there's even times today, like, I don't know about today particularly, but like over the past couple of weeks, there's been moments where I've like slipped up and fallen into victimhood, and I haven't even noticed it. And it's like not till I like speak to friends or a mentor, And then they like turn around and call me on it, and I'm like reflecting on it, and I'm like, fuck, they're right. Like, I didn't even realize how this programming was playing out. But unless I had the willingness or the I'll just say the willingness to accept that, like, maybe there's something in me that could be operating a little more efficiently, then I'm never going to get the lesson, right? Because I'm always going to be fighting against it. And it's something that my old coach used to say. A guy that I did coaching with, that, like, one thing that's always served me really well is that I've always had this part of me that's like, okay, well, maybe it's me, maybe there's something in me that is a dead tree that does need burning off. And it's served me very well in my life. Now at times it's also a double-edged sword, because there's been a lot of times, particularly in my past, particularly where I was going through very turbulent times, when I was kind of sort of failing myself and my purpose as a man, where I would just pretty much be so patient with everyone else's bullshit. And then that's actually, like, by doing that is I'm making the whole situation worse, because not only am I taking on so much more, pain, suffering, all the rest of it than I need to, or really don't really need to take on any at all. But, I'd be carrying other people's bullshit, and then I'd literally be enabling them. So, it's been a hard lesson to learn and overcome that, to allow myself to change, and to I think the biggest thing is to allow people to make their mistakes, and to go through their suffering. Because one thing I experienced a lot on my journey was kind of like playing the martyr, wanting to save people and wanting to carry their pain. And all that did was make me a much smaller version of myself than I could be. So it hasn't been easy allowing this to burn off, but, like, it's necessary for growth, and it's necessary for me to be the person that I am today. It's kind of a funny, like, paradox or conundrum, though, especially when it's kind of like speaking about it openly. Like, I'm going to upload this, and it's sharing some of the fuck ups of my life. And it's like, doesn't matter how far down the road that you go, we all make mistakes. And it's a saying that I forget who I got it from, but they were talking about people that are in AA. And it's like, they say, no matter how far down the road that you go, you're always the same distance from the ditch. So, like, no matter how far through life we go, we're still the same distance from, like, messing up. You see people that are married for, like, 20, 30, 40 years. Something happens, one of them cheats or whatever, bang, it's all over. And then the same token is, like, no matter how far along the ditch that we go, we're always, like, the same distance from being able to get back on track. Even though that, like, when we've been in the ditch for so long that we identify with being in the ditch, like, we just need to fix some shit behavior, stop doing some things, and then give it time by just, even when it feels like, it's hopeless and nothing's working, and you go through a dark night of the soul experience, which is when you let go of pretty much everything in your life, and then you feel empty and listless because you don't have any of the same bearings or come on, brain. You don't have any of the same, markers or bearings or waypoints that you sort of would be leaning on, or not leaning on, but identifying with, in terms of, like, your identity, your beliefs, your behaviors, your attachments, that pretty well covers it. Your relationships, that covers your relationship with yourself as well, which is kind of identity as well. But it's like, when you go through deep change, like, you're going to resonate with different people, you're going to start taking different actions, you're going to believe different things, you're going to say different things, actions is doing different things. And as a result, your identity changes. So then you see yourself as a different person, like, and whether that's, like, visually seeing yourself as a different person, or energetically seeing yourself as a different person, in terms of, like, how you interact with the world. Like, if you're a weak person, then, difficulty comes and you're going to shy away from that difficulty. If you're a strong person and difficulty comes, then you're going to be able to face it head on, and you're not going to let. And I'm trying to remember what it is and who it was the person said, but I think I'd completely box it to try and paraphrase it word for word, but what they were pretty much saying was like, one of the tests as a person and a test of your character is like when everything turns to shit, how able are you to stay present and to stay loving and to stay grateful? Even in the most difficult situation, you lose a family member. How in that time, how capable are you to be grateful? And I'm not saying that like it's a good thing. Like, I've lost people in my life and it's bloody hard. The thing is like, it's that age old saying of like, well, would the person that's in the box, would you want you to be upset? Would they want you to be sad and grieving and mourning and beating yourself up for everything that you could have done or should have done or everything that you did wrong? Or would they want you to sort of just love them and, spend some time to like mourn them or let them go and then move on with your life and, just to remember them for all of the beautiful things? And in the same way is like, there's another quote or saying is like, when you get to the end of your life, there's two different versions I'll sort of mention. Is like, when you get to the end of your life, you can be in a room with all of your dreams, and when you don't bring your dreams to life, like, you'll be in the room and all of your dreams will be so angry at you that they went to the grave with you. Like, think about, everything that you've wanted to do, whether it was being an amazing, I suppose, profession, hobby, relationship, archetype. So it could be being a great salesperson, mechanic, Air Force pilot, engineer, musician, artist, you name it. Could be a great mother, father, brother, friend, coach or teacher, speaker, mentor. Could be a great, like warrior, king, sage, magician, like, somebody. What kind of a person and balance are you, and what kind of gifts can you give to the world is the more pragmatic and less woo-woo way of saying that. And then the other thing is like the David Goggins way of explaining it is like you finish your life and you get to heaven, and then as you come up to the gates, oh, gee whiz, I'm forgetting the guy's name. Saint Peter has his list, and there's you standing there as you were at the peak of your life. You're like 30, 40 odd years old, and let's say for the sake of argument, like he talks about in his situation, like he could have been 200 odd kilograms and spraying for cockroaches and broke and like depressed or beat down and just like a absolute shell of who he is today. And he could have got to heaven, and St. Peter's going, well, you could have been this weight, absolutely like ripped physique, capable of running all these ultra marathons, SEALs, and like he was in the Navy SEALs, or I think he was, or Marines, or whatever it was. He did buds anyways, which is like the really intense training. Like, rattle off a list of all of, most people know David Goggins. If you don't know him, suss him out. He's a pretty tough egg, I guess you could say. And he came from being a very fat and useless person. And in the sense of fat and useless, because like, okay, fat's fat, but useless is, even though that there's potential, not doing anything with his potential, not running into any storms, not allowing parts of himself to burn off. And he speaks about it in a sense of being jacked up is like, when you're all jacked up, the one of the best things to do is to say like, man, like, I can't believe I was so jacked up there. Like, that was, sort of crazy or whatever. And like, just to completely own that like, that you've allowed yourself to be somebody that you didn't want to be. And in that, when you let go of that person that you have been, and you sort of take ownership that you were being that person, you can allow that person to be a former version of yourself. Because the thing is like, even if we don't choose, if we don't choose to change, we're choosing to stay the same. And I don't know if that's supposed to be I don't know if that's supposed to be like a cliche quote, or I think that might have been something that I've heard, but it makes total sense. Like, we're choosing regardless, even if we stay in bed all day long and don't choose to do anything in the outside world, we're still choosing to let that happen by result of not going out and making things happen. Like victor and the victim. Once again, like, if we're going to be a victor, then when we're going to go to the world. If we're going to be a victim, then the world's going to come at us. And I've even had moments like this recently where I'm sort of speaking to somebody, and about how I've been, and there's been moments where, like, or there's been large portions of time where I've been going at the world, going at the world, going at the world, showing up, showing up, showing up. And then, might be like a day or a couple days where I get a bit weird or listless because I haven't, had an appropriate conversation, or I haven't got clear on something, etc. And then there's this energy build up of, like, there's energy coming in, and I'm starting to, like, take water on board. There's holes in my boat that I'm not plugging. Then it's like, okay, have the conversation, get the slap over the back of the head. All right, fuck. Yeah, you're right. All right, let's go plug the holes. Let's go and pail the bloody water out. Let the dead trees burn off. Whatever saying that you like more. And then just reset, readjust, refocus, and move forward. And that's all that we can do. And that's one of the bigger lessons that I've learned in my life, because growing up, like, I didn't have it easy. Like, I didn't have the worst life, but I certainly didn't have it easy. But one of the worst things that I took from it was this horrible pattern of just beating myself up. And, like, over the past few years, like, I've really made some massive changes within myself and done a lot of healing, and pretty much it's kind of a thing, like, I'm on a different part of my journey now. I think, to say simply, like, a lot of people kind of get stuck in their healing journey for a long time. And, it definitely took me a while to move through mine, to clear all of the shit. And at times, and sort of what I'm referencing when these times come up is, at times I sort of think that, like, I've got, like, a whole healing journey to go again. And I'm like, fuck, like, I'm back to square one. I haven't actually made any progress. But it's like, no, these are just conditionings of the nervous system. Because, like, however a pattern, like, feels going down is the same way that it feels going up. So you can think that you're taking some shit on board when you're actually getting rid of some shit. It can seem like there's water going in the boat, but you're actually carrying the water back out of the boat. So, yeah, like, and that's even a an important point to do with self-talk, because in those moments when your faith is going to be challenged, like, it can be easy for your self-talk to turn to that, you're back in the same place again, that you're kind of back on the merry-go-round of however long ago. And it takes that strength and discipline of mind to, just accept and remind yourself that you are where you are today, and that you've been through that. Like, the past only relives itself if you allow it to. And what that means is, like, okay, yeah, there's certain things that you're going to have to intentionally heal or fix or change. But, like, even if it's the same pattern coming back up, and if the same pattern is there, it doesn't mean that you are reliving the past, so long as you choose to do a different thing with the pattern. Just because the pattern's the same doesn't mean that it has to be the same result. And that's, like, equality of opportunity and equality of outcome kind of thing. And once again, that's victor and victim, because victors have, equality of opportunity. We all have the same opportunity to get out of bed early every morning and go to bed early every night, and to, have really good sleep hygiene, and then to have really good habits and routines, and then to go and absolutely crush the day in a healthy way. Or we can expect that we can stay up late, get up late, eat terrible food, have terrible relationships, and do really like low rent things, and expect that we're still going to have the same outcomes. And that's absolutely not the case. Like, it's probably a massive no shit Sherlock, but like, it's, I think we all see it a lot within ourselves and with people around us if we actually stop to look for it. Like, I know very, very few people that are like truly strong victors in life, that they go out life and, regardless of whether they have a skill set to be able to go at life or not, like where they're just continually just showing up and going at it. And actually, there's probably more than I sort of give myself credit of knowing, because there's a couple programs that I'm in, and the people in those programs are really good, really, really strong, solid people. And I also do have, and that's a funny thing that I've never sort of, that I haven't particularly thought about until just then. And that's almost like a bit of victim sort of language right there, like not seeing people for, or not stopping and not stopping and taking stock of the healthy and strong people in my life. Like, if you look at lack, you will see lack. If you look at abundance, you will see abundance. And that's one of the essentially core principles of manifestation. But like, yeah, that's an interesting one. It's kind of funny how things come up, and like that's fine, because that's just a program that's sort of been running deep in the subconscious, and it's not something that I ever think about. Like, I never actually stop and think, like, what kind of people I do and don't have in my life. Or I guess I think, to be true and honest, is that over the past couple months particularly, as I've made such a large amount of change, all of the people that I've had in my life over the past 6 months, like, my relationships with them are changing in such a big way, and it's been such an interesting process to watch myself go on a different path. And then there's certain people that I've known where there's absolutely just full blown victim language and mentality and action. But then there's also people that I've known that have been the complete opposite. But I think the reason why that sort of language was there in my head was because I was sort of trying to carry those unhealthy friendships instead of allowing them to be burned off, instead of just loving that person from a distance. Like, I was, trying to have particular conversations, or, show up in a particular way where, I'd either be able to have a relationship with them, or to the point where I'm sort of just like stepping away from them. And that's all kind of like a part of sort of the world coming at me, per se, opposed to me, setting my preferences and boundaries and deal breakers, and just sort of moving forward in a stoic sense. Because, I think that's probably a good one to cap off with, is stoicism. Because life is really simple. It is honestly really simple. When you look at the actions and the tasks which we need to do in life, so simple. It's what happens up here that gets complicated. And, like, I've been very intentional with thinking less lately, because it's just like, think less, do more. Because thought only gets you so far, and at a point, thinking only just runs you in circles. It's like, left foot, right foot. Like, left foot, learn, learn, learn. Right foot, do, do, do. You gotta learn, and then you gotta do, and then you gotta learn, and then you gotta do. Because if you just do one of those, is you're just gonna run yourself in circles repeatedly, and you don't actually get anywhere, and you don't actually change or do anything different. Yeah. It's kind of interesting what comes up in this kind of format. Yeah. So yeah, it's just times in life are changing, and it's an interesting thing to go through another time of change after, like, things have been changing so much faster lately. And I think with, like, every change that I go through, things continue to change faster. It's like compound interest. The more you get, the more you get. And on the same token, like, fuck all of fuck all is fuck all. So if you go and get more, and then you keep doing more, and then you keep getting more, like, it. The same thing with change. When you truly commit yourself to it, like, it happens so fast that you are continually, like, reflecting and continually being surprised or amazed with, you thought things were one way, but they're really a very different way, in a really good way, which is very interesting. Manifestation, really. That's the thing. Like, when you show up with the right intention, right energy, right focus, part of your brain reticular activating system. So if you really want bananas, you're going to see bananas. It's going to be like 3 doors down when you're looking down the street. You're going to go, oh, banana. If you're looking for a Mercedes, C63, you're going to be driving around down the highway in traffic, 100 meters away, you're going to go, ooh, C63. If you're looking for a healthy relationship with a particular kind of person, and you're out and about in the world, and then you're like, oh, that person seems like they have these kind of traits, and this kind of energy, interesting, and then you go and chat to them, and then boom. And that's the whole thing with manifestation is, you've not only have you got to be ready for it, and to be visualizing it, or to at least be willing to accept it before you can see it, because the opportunities can be there. Like, this world is, you could kind of call it the same world regardless, but it's like, depending on who we are, how we show up, defines how the world is going to be. Like, if you take I don't know, I'm just going to say, if you take a high level politician, if you take a high level martial artist, if you take a high level musician, if you take a low level crackhead, if you take a mid level family man, and if you take a young girl, you can put them all in the exact same scenario or the exact same opportunities, and they're going to see completely different things. It's like people in a shopping center. Like, if you go to the shopping center and you take 10 different people from 10 different walks of life, they're going to want to go to 10 different places. One person's want to go to Target to look at, I don't know, fucking cheap clothes. Another person's want to go to EB Games to look at video games. Another person's want to go to, like, a kitchen shop and look at cutting knives and chopping boards and shit. Another person's want to go and look at fancy watches. Another person's want to going to want to go to the food court. Another person's just want to go to Woolies and do their shopping. Another person want to go to the piercing shop and get the tongue pierced. Yeah. Well, I think that's enough of talking and tangents and all that good stuff from me. So, hope there was value here. As always, feel free to like and comment and share and all that good stuff. Hope you have a beautiful night, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.